Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres, and for today's video we are going to be talking about the Tier 7 Italian heavy cruiser currently in early access, the Zara. And I've just got to come out and say it, this ship is very interesting looking. She's got some interesting lines here and there, and just makes her a rather unique looking ship, to not put too fine a point on it. But personally, as far as her battle performance, I've been finding the ship rather underwhelming. But we'll get to that in a minute. First off, looking at her armor profile. I mean, she does have some okay-ish armor in some places. I mean, she's got very thin bow and stern plating for a Tier 7 cruiser. I mean, we're only looking at 16 millimeters there. I mean, her guns are pretty well protected. She's also got a nice thick main armor belt and a 30mm strip of armor directly above that. So when you're actively maneuvering, trolling shells into her sides, yeah, she can actually do very, very well. But with those very, very thin bow and stern, I mean, she's gonna eat all kinds of shells like crazy, especially if you are trying to just bow tank or stern tank anything. On top of that, the only thing these armor values on the bow and stern are really going to protect you from at all are shells just a little bit above 203 millimeters. So if you're looking at a battleship at any wrong angle really at all, they're going to overmatch that nose and stern, and this is a very long nose and a very long stern, so you're going to absorb a lot of penetration damage from basically any battleship that looks at you wrong if you're not actively maneuvering and trolling shells into your side. The other thing is, she does have a nice health pool of 37,100 hit points, which is better than most of the other ships at her tier. In fact, it's the healthiest health pool of any ship at her tier, at Tier 7, as far as cruisers go. The other thing is, she also has a nice solid 19% torpedo damage reduction, which is, again, the heaviest torpedo damage reduction of any cruiser at Tier 7. So in that regard, she is relatively well defended. But again, if a battleship so much as looks at you wrong, you're hurting. You're going to be hurting real hard. In fact, this ship is going to rely very heavily on active maneuvering to just troll shells into the main armor belt and whatever, and basically hope that you don't pull anything in through the nose or the stern. Her guns aren't bad. 14.5 second reload, 5,050 damage for the SAP shells, 4,800 for the AP shells. And, I mean, the other values are kind of very cruiserish. She also reaches out to 16.1 kilometers reasonably well. But, again, this is a heavy cruiser, it's a slow reload. She just doesn't perform incredibly well. And, of course, she's a mid-tier cruiser, which just makes some of these, I guess I could say, shortcomings even more painful. Her torpedoes are there. I mean, they're still the standard Italian slow, long-range torpedoes. You do have a triple launcher on each side. But those are really only good for close-range, last-ditch efforts, knife fight drops. And even then, they're just slow. Looking at her AA values, she's also not exactly the most well-defended. I mean, sure, these values are very usable, don't get me wrong. But she's not a ship that I would definitely see as being a heavily viable AA spec. Especially when you consider the fact that this is a ship that is designed more for hunting down destroyers, light cruisers, and maybe doing some reasonable long-range damage to battleships. But overall, she's really not looking too much at really fighting an aircraft carrier. As far as her speed, she does get to 33.6 knots, but when you compare her to some of her others, I mean, even the premiums are faster than her. 36.5 knots for the Abruzzi. I think the Aosta was even 36 knots. The Trento, the Montecuccoli, both of them are even faster. I mean, again, 33.6 knots for the Zara. The Trento gets 36.8. The Montecuccoli, hell, it's almost 39 knots. So you're actually dealing with a substantially slower cruiser at Tier 7 than you have been at Tier 5 and Tier 6. And that also has an effect on her ability to actively mitigate incoming damage by utilizing that belt armor. Her concealment also is not exactly stellar at 13.5 kilometers from the surface. I mean, she has a lot of shortcomings, and honestly, I hate to come right out and say it, she suffers for them. She suffers for them hard. For upgrades, as you've already seen, I've got Main Armaments Mod 1, Damage Control Systems Mod 1, Aiming Systems Mod 1, and Steering Gears Mod 2. And, well, Steering Gears Mod 2 is definitely there because you want to try to use her maneuverability as best you can, just to a nice quick rudder shift, control shells into that side armor reasonably well. But again, it also can you tell I'm actually having a hard time trying to sell anything about this ship? I've taken this ship into 4, maybe 5 battles, and I'll come right out and say that I'm having a very hard time finding anything really good to say about this ship, even with all of the proper upgrades in here. I mean, sure, there are other things I could recommend to, and I mean, you can see I was recording a number of different things here that I might have thought about recommending, but honestly, the way I see it with this ship, you're almost like polishing a turd. You really just can't do it very well. Even talking about the captain's skills, I mean, yeah, sure, I've got expert loader, I've got expert marksman. I would recommend looking at superintendent just so you get extra charges on your consumables because, yeah, you're going to need them. You're going to want them. I'm going to come right out and say that. You're going to want the extra charges in this ship because that's about the only thing that's really going to keep you alive as far as I've seen. Other things to consider would be torpedo reload expert, but that's iffy. I would say maybe, as far as your level 4 skills, I would definitely say radiolocation, maybe concealment expert, just so that you have better angles, better ballistics. But even then, it's hard recommending anything for the ship. Again, it's that I've been having that many problems with it so far. And this is something that I actually have a difficult time saying because I love these ships. I mean, those of you who have watched my reviews on the Raimondo Montecuccoli and the Trento so far, I mean, I've had all kinds of fun with those ships. I've loved those ships so far. They've behaved very well for me. I get into the Zara, however, with its capability of seeing down to Tier 5 and up to Tier 9. And honestly, the first thing that went through my mind after the first couple of battles in this ship was, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this thing? I'm going to be perfectly honest. I have no idea, really, what to do with this ship, because that super long reload really hurts at Tier 7 especially. So if you get into matches with Tier 9s, you're pretty well screwed, on top of the fact that you've got that super thin bow and stern armor that I was already talking about. It hurts. It hurts like crazy if you get a battleship looking at you wrong. Especially when you consider most battleships, especially on the tiers that this ship is going to be facing, the lowest caliber, I think, on some of those battleships is 305 millimeters, which your battle armor doesn't even do anything against that. Hello? This ship just does not like getting shot at by anything other than a cruiser. I mean, looking at the proper conversion value for overmatch mechanics, to even just have a chance against 305mm shells, her bow and stern would have to be like 23mm, maybe more. 23, 24, 25mm. And she just doesn't have that. Lord help you if you are looking down something that she's commonly going to face at 356mm, or even at Tier 7 with 406mm guns. So yeah, I mean, battleships, give them a very wide berth in this ship, because you're not going to like what they do to you at all. In fact, with only 16mm of bow and stern armor, this ship is going to absorb full damage from even destroyers shooting HE at you, because that's not even enough armor to just shatter 127mm HE shells. So there's that to be had. I mean, if I were looking at this Atlanta and it was shooting at my bow and stern, I would be one hurt and peppy, because those guns can just go right through my bow and stern armor without even thinking about it. That's how little this ship actually has protecting it. Now granted, that's not incredibly uncommon at Tier 7 for cruisers, but it's still not great. That's definitely not something that, I mean, oh geez, I have no idea what I'm even really trying to get at with that. Just aside from the fact that it's gonna be painful. There's no two ways about it. As far as bow and stern armor, I think even the Helena that's sitting in front of me has better bow and stern armor than I do. But yeah, this ship's just going to absorb damage like crazy if you use it incorrectly. The only thing good going for it in its armor profile is that very thick 150mm armor belt. And even then, that's in the hope that maybe you control shells into that side armor and get it to ricochet or shatter. Because Lord knows it's not going to ricochet or shatter damn near anywhere else on this ship. The other thing that I really have to say in regards to the way this ship was performing is that because I was having trouble getting any decent, and I do mean decent, match in this ship, it took me... I actually did 4 battles for this video, and you're going to see all 4 of them, and you're going to see exactly why I have to come out and just call this ship flat out lousy. I mean, first match here, 26,500 damage. That's terrible, even by even the worst players' standards as far as I'm concerned. 96,000 credits earned. Team score, 273 base EXP for this match. I mean, granted, I'm not the worst player on the map, but even so, look, these damage values, they suck. 821 to the Atlanta, 10,000 to the New Orleans. Granted, the match also moved along relatively quickly, but even so, just, it sucked. It was terrible. I'm going to be perfectly honest. This match was terrible. I mean, even with the credit, the only reason I even really pulled a profit on this match was because I was only running, I think, 1 premium consumable. Actually, no, I was running a camouflage that it resupplied. If I had been running premium consumables, I would have not made any profit on this match without modifiers. So there's that to have thinking about it as well. It would have been just an absolutely horrendous match if I were running anything other than base modules or anything like that. Coming into the second match, I mean, first thing I saw was Tier 9s, and I was like, oh shit. Because those are ships that I really did not want to be seeing. Not even a little bit. and even just a little bit of an outside look at that Neptune, and it was more than happy to just drill shells right into me. With basically no way for me to do anything except hope that maybe the shells bounced off my bow, bounced off my side plating. Because anything else, those shells might have gone... Well, actually, I take it back. Neptune's caliber is small, so maybe it would not have fully penetrated my bow and stern if I had gone bow in. But even then, I've still just got such thin armor that I really did not want to take my chances. That's how bad the armor is on this ship. Throw in the long reload against a Neptune? Oh my god, I would have lost that map hands down if there hadn't been other people right behind me. And even then, I still used my smoke because there was no way in hell I was going to leave my ass hanging out for that Neptune to have its way with. My god, that would have... That just would have been bad. It would have been bad all around if I had just let that Neptune be able to keep seeing me. I do decide to put my focus on this enemy Leon, and to my credit, the Leon is not even really looking at me. It's looking more at the friendly, I think it's Prince Eugen that's just around the corner in front of me. And, well, it definitely had bigger problems to worry about than me, that's for sure, because Lord knows, I swear I'm just hitting it with mosquito bites. I'm not even really doing anything major to it at all. Even with a nice, beautiful broadside, I only do 1,600 damage. And I know I was well above the armor belt where that should have done some decent penetration damage. But this match, bottom tier, where I had more than enough potential to get all kinds of damage, what do I walk away with? 8,800. 8,800 damage. I mean, that's... granted, I'm not the worst scoring player on the team, but I'm not far from it. I have nothing to say here. That match just moved too quickly for the ship to even be able to do anything. I think I got off, what, maybe 5-6 salvos at best? I mean, come on, this match was terrible. And even the Neptune that I know I popped off at least 3 or 4 salvos on, I only did 505 damage to that sucker. I fired 48 shells, 24 of them hit, and only did 8,800 damage. I mean, come on. Seriously? I can't even begin to say that was even marginally a good match, aside from the one point where I made a single good decision to keep my ass hidden from the Neptune because it was going to eat me for breakfast. But that's another matter entirely. Now, match number 3 here on Two Brothers map. This was the first match that I had where I had not been up-tiered in some way, shape, or form. I'm straight tier 7 matchmaking here. Nothing that I'm looking at as far as anything else on this map was anything other than tier 7. I've got, like, 2 New Orleans staring at me, and I think there's a Shiratsuyu down there. Mayhan, I think, also. I could be wrong, or Fushun, yeah, that's what it is, Fushun. And, I mean, hell, the Trento in front of me does better than I do. He's tier 6. Keep that in mind, he's tier 6. I'm running the same course as him in the tier 7, which should be better, and I do lousy by comparison. And actually, I should amend that. By comparison, I do lousy at first by comparison. Because, I mean, he's done more damage to the New Orleans so far than I have. The only thing that really does start going well for me is that I start pumping in AP while I think he's only using his SAP, and that's the difference. I decided to switch shell types, and that is what made the difference for me. If I had decided to keep using the same guns, the same ammo types he was, I would have just sucked moving forward with this match, because my penetration, my damage, would have been almost useless. On top of the fact that I did get that one lucky torpedo hit right there. But other than that, if I had tried doing anything, if I had tried operating in anywhere near the same fashion as the Trento was, I would not have done anywhere near as well as I did in this match. This match had every potential to be just as lousy as everything previous. And this is equal tier. This is where I should be at least somewhat... I should feel somewhat competitive. And honestly, with the SAP shells alone, it really doesn't feel that way. I don't know what it is about the SAP shells where I just feel like I'm not getting along with them. I mean, AP shells, sure, I understand those beautifully. HE shells even, those are phenomenal. SAP shells, granted, they're new. People are still getting used to them, even me. But it just seems like the way they behave relative to armor and whatnot really isn't that well established yet. So, I mean, granted, I suppose that's one of those things to consider in the review of this ship. Maybe once people start getting used to using the SAP in the situation under which they perform best becomes a little bit better understood and more refined, maybe then the outlook on this ship will change. But for right now, honestly, this ship, I would just say that this ship is an absolute pain to work with. And it's also a ship that would really make me start to worry about what would happen when I move up to the Tier 8, the Amalfi. And honestly, it's already making me wonder what's going to happen when I move up to the Amalfi eventually. Because if the Amalfi behaves anywhere near the same as the Zara, my enjoyment in this line is probably going to stop with the Trento, because there's no way I'm going to... I feel like putting myself through a ship that just feels this bad. From a techline ship. I mean, hell, I skipped over the Colorado when I was first going through the American techline, because everything that was going on with that ship just felt wrong, felt bad. Now, I'm sure there are those of you who are going to come out and say, oh, the Colorado's a lovely ship, Colorado's awesome. It's also received some buffs in recent history. So it may be better than it was when I was first grinding it, and Lord knows I'm going to find out soon enough, because I have opted to regrind my American battleship line. But back then, to me, working through the Colorado, hell, even working through the Nagato, the Japanese Tier 7 battleship. Granted, those are battleships, not cruisers, but even so, they just felt bad, and I could not wait to free EXP my way through them, because I was not comfortable working with them. And honestly, that's the way I'm feeling about the Zara, and potentially the Amalfi, if it behaves in any way similar to the Zara at all. Now, third match, not bad. 50,922 damage. At least that's respectable for a Tier 7 cruiser, but this was against equal tiers straight up. Up-tiered, I was doing horrible. 160,000 credits earned, 1,500 EXP earned, 323 free EXP. Managed to get 3 kills, and I think that was by sheer luck. I barely scraped out top of the team. And I seriously felt that way. I barely scraped it out. In order to do that, I think I had to pull off a kill steal or two to get away with the points earnings, the credit earnings that I did. I mean, 13,000 to a New Orleans, 16,000 to a New Orleans, 20,000 to a New Orleans. I know the New Orleans has at least, 15,000 more than that. So I was not the highest, in a couple of cases, I was not the highest damaging player on a number of these ships. And it really started feeling bad. Like there was almost nothing that I could do really in this ship aside from playing as a kill thief for my sole source of income, because it just seemed like there was nothing I could really do to contribute to the match otherwise. And I will also admit that it felt like every shot that I was taking, I was trying to race everybody else for the damage so that my match wouldn't suck. And I mean that full-heartedly. Last but not least, we do have match number 4. And this was the first match in this ship that I had that I wasn't up-tiered. I wasn't bottom tier against something. I wasn't facing all equal tier. For the first match in 4 rounds, I had a top tier match against tier 5s. And it actually started feeling that this was the first match where this ship actually, honestly started feeling a little bit good. And that is something that I really have to admit that I don't like feeling. If I pull out a ship that can see all the way up to tier 9, I want to feel like it can at least be somewhat viable against a tier 9 ship. I don't want to pull out a techline tier 9 ship and feel like I am utterly worthless against it. I mean, hell, Leningrad, I flat out murdered that sucker. Kirov, I switch over to AP and I'm going to do a substantial amount of damage to it as well. Because it's a tier 5, it's a much lower tier ship, and I'm capable of doing substantial amounts of damage to it. Well, okay, that kind of sucked. But, again, this was the only match where I honestly felt like maybe I would be passively powerful. Still not outstandingly powerful, just passively. But, again, just that whole feeling that maybe I can do something. It was also the first match where I had actually gotten a real good shot at any of the destroyers, I might add. And that is probably where some of this powerful feeling came from this ship, because, my god, it flat out murders destroyers like crazy. I mean, damn. I mean, I even got torpedoes off on the York, and it just kind of sailed right into them. And it does finish me off. So I didn't really get to end up facing off against the Duke of York or the Colorado, but granted, with as thin armor as I had, I probably would not have lasted very long against either anyway. Finish off the match, 52,000 damage done. But at least for the first out of 4 matches, I felt like I was actually in a position to actually do something reasonable over the course of a match, instead of either racing for damage or hoping that I wasn't going to get killed. This is not a feeling that I've had in either of the other Italian cruisers that I've gone through so far. The Trento, the Trento and Montecuccoli, granted, when they were up-tiered, they didn't exactly feel incredibly comfortable, but I still felt like they were viable ships. The Zara, again, I've just got to stop and ask, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing in this thing? The only thing it really seems good at all is hunting destroyers. Even against cruisers, unless you get a lucky shot in here and there, you're hurting real bad. I mean, Lord help you if you end up even against just a light battleship that has something slightly more than 203 millimeters. If you come up against something with something larger than 203, you're really going to be one hurting puppy. I mean, even just a 10-inch gun is going to be more than enough to punch right through your armor. 256 is the Scharnhorst, would have a field day with this ship, and I'm lucky I didn't come across either of those. So, yeah. Again, not exactly the most comfortable ship in the world, and I'm sure somebody's going to come along and scream at me saying, "Oh, please, the Zara is a phenomenal ship," or somebody else may come along and say, "Hey, yeah, dude, I commiserate with you completely. It's a terrible ship." I'm sure there's going to be your two sides of the coin. There's no way about that. But that's just, I have not been comfortable in this ship. Anyway, I'm just about out of time, so I'll go ahead and let everybody go. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed what you've seen here. I hope you find it informative, and I hope to catch you all again next time. Wish you all happy hunting, stay safe, and take care out there, folks.